What's perfectly legal but creepy AF? Story 1. Exploiting children on social media. TikTok has become the worst for this. Those kids cannot consent, and using them for views while disregarding the dangers of how people can use the content is disgusting behavior. Story 2. Religion. The way most men behave around and speak to and about women. Prank videos. Also, any videos recording people without their consent. I don't mean people who happen to be in the background of a video. I'm talking about deliberately recording a specific person without their consent. Child beauty pageants, shaming, recording oneself in the gym. Story 3. Certain behaviors, like staring at folks in public, flooding someone's DMs with messages even after they've asked you to stop, or following someone around, can seem real creepy even if they ain't against the law. Story 4. Marrying your first or second cousin. Like after so many relatives, you're not considered family anymore. Not telling adopted foster, abandoned children whom their relatives are if they know. A brother and sister didn't know they were related until they filed for a marriage certificate. Donating so much sperm to the sperm bank. The fact there is more than one guy with 100 kids based on that insane. Certain types of flirting. Once the flirting makes the other feel in danger, it should not be considered that. Boy moms. I mean the moms that act like their son is their lover. The sexualization part of our culture. Seriously, maybe that person is just eating a lollipop. Thirst traps. Story 5. Child marriage is still legal in many U.S. states, with 4 of them not having a legal minimum age for marriage at all. On top of this, the Republican Party has fiercely opposed any efforts to change this, despite the fact that part of their present-day platform is protecting children from pedophiles and grooming. The reality is that this part of their platform is targeted at LGBT people. Apparently, they are just fine with hetero people marrying children. Story 6. Female kids' swimsuits being too revealing or almost like an adult's. They're either too cheeky, V-cut, two-piece, etc., along with their parents dressing them up in an adult way, such as crop tops, tight clothing, etc. Story 7. Men in their 60s who are total strangers, trying to flirt with women in the 20s in public. This has happened to me too many times in restaurants. Even during breakfast and around my parents. It's disgusting. Story 8. Buying and using a police scanner. It's perfectly legal to own and operate one, but sitting at home and listening in on police, fire, and emergency medical communications can feel incredibly voyeuristic and creepy. You're eavesdropping on real-time emergencies and situations happening to real people, which can be unsettling. In some countries, it is illegal. Story 9. Why anybody in their right mind would join an HOA. Ooh! Got a better one. Seriously, don't do this far. Going to a lesbian bar as a man, dressed like a trans person and hoping for dates. Not actively looking, mind, but not turning any of the ladies down. Story 10. A man can repeatedly threaten to eliminate you, tell the world about it, harass you, stalk you. You can't get a restraining order until after he tries something criminal. Any person can, but my experience is with a man. Story 11. All the AR-15s. 40 years ago, when I owned guns and went to gun ranges, we laughed at people who brought an AR-15. There were very, very few. They were obviously not hunters or shooting target. They seemed to like wasting ammunition, making some noise, and thought they expressed dominance or something. We laughed. Now they are the major guns sold in the USA. How creepy is that? Story 12. Taking photos of people in public. There used to be a guy in my urban neighborhood who I guess considered himself a street photographer who would take close-up pictures of people as they went about their daily business. Never asked permission either to take the shot, which, okay, I guess if you're going for the spontaneous look, or asked after if it was okay, and got immediately defensive if you confronted him. Story 13. If you're a lawyer, I'm sure you can wiggle out of it. But in my country, if you stare constantly, then a lot bad can happen to you. Police will take the side of the girl, and cases like intimacy harassment can be added as easily as cheese on a burger. People around can beat you to a pulp, too. Story 14. Have a friend who has been involved in pageants since the mid-'80s in dozens of different systems, with her own child sponsoring coaching other children. She has never heard of this. Majority of U.S. pageants are owned by women, with majority of contestants being female. On top of this, you can become a national queen and win a $1,200 prize, but the child's shoes cost $250, the dress over $3,000, hair makeup, another $250. That's just for the final people aren't putting on the pageants making a lot of money. Many systems use volunteer judges even. Is it ridiculous? Yes, but most of this simply isn't true. Story 15. Taking pictures of yourself and gluing them in a colleague to literally every surface in your home. Literal G-poi. Having a shrine to legendary drag queen Divine and bowing down to it to pray every night. Wearing a baby's bib when going out to eat. Story 16. 18-year-old adopting a 17-year-old. Although TBF, the court will likely turn down an 18-year-old due to a lack of parenting skills and responsibility, not to mention the 1-year age gap. But in the law's defense, a sibling adopting a younger sibling is possible if the older one aged out of the system. Story 17. Leaving your house with a bottle of water is perfectly fine, but switch that bottle of water with a glass of water that you just carry around with you and you'll look insane. Nothing illegal, but definitely weird. Story 18. Children's beauty pageants judges. They should not fudge exist. Children's beauty pageants insurers. They should not fudge exist. Did you know that children contestants have to carry insurance? Insurance against molestation, among other things? Guess who carries the policies? Yup, that's right. Story 19. Well, I think this has full follow-through when you meet the evangelical fundamentalists that are dead set on marrying the contestants. So seeing a 45-year-old seek parental consent to marry a 12-year-old is fudge unhinged and unfortunately not at all shunned in the United States. You see powerful senators and congressmen advocating for the right to marry children. This why abortion is hooked into this, because they desperately want those 12-year-old brides to be barefoot pregnant and rocking it like it's 500 BC. Story 20. I am an American, but foreign-born. I have heard of this children's beauty pageants, but have never seen it. I always imagined it as a non-sexualized children's contest on who is more pretty. Is it really sexualizing children, as in kids try to dress sexy? Or is it beautification, as in kids don't dress sexy but just pretty clothing? As a father of a 3-year-old, I can't imagine sexualization of kids even being a thing in US. I feel like maybe these are just regular children, things that are misinterpreted. I really have no idea because I've never seen one. But can it be a misinterpretation? Story 21. But worse, you're actually smelling the remnants of many jerk and female body part, also sweaty SSEs in between if you attempt that in a public place. So by all means, enjoy that whiff. LOL, just be a normal perv and do the smell check after third base LOI. Story 22. This is so disgusting and I'm so sorry that is happening to you. If you trust your parents, please tell them it's happening. If not, perhaps another adult you know and trust. Also, please keep blocking them, but also report them. I'm sure you already know this too, but please don't include any personal details in any posts or comments you make, especially not things like your name, your city, your school name, places you like to hang out, etc. Story 23. You know, I'm not sure that's actually legal. The hair is the barber's property, so it's technically theft, and also could be considered trespassing if he tells you to stop and leave. I don't know, doesn't seem super legal. But I'm not a lawyer, I just play one in my mind. Story 24. Sorry, not sorry. My work phone is absolute garbage and needs replaced. The regular speaker barely puts out enough noise to make out mumbles. I never keep earbuds in my pocket because, for whatever reason, if I use them, callers can't hear me unless I speak as if I'm hard of hearing. But the speaker works like a charm. I always find it hilarious that I can't have a private conversation due to it. Story 25. Shoot. I get this feeling when another car stays behind me for more than a couple of turns. I know objectively that they probably just live nearby, but if they follow onto my street, I'm going to loop around and drive over to the park for a bit. I dislike being followed. Apparently my dad feels the same way, because someone followed him around for like 40 minutes, and he kept going around to different side streets trying to shake them. It went on so long that eventually a cop showed up at our house looking for him. Whoever was following my dad around had reported him as a tipsy driver. No, he was just freaked the fudge out by the creepy driver following him all over the city. Answer. Unintentionally did this to my neighbor once. I kept catching her eyes glancing back at me in her rearview mirror. We'd been neighbors for like 5 years at that point and knew each other, so I was just like, she has to recognize me and my car. Eventually, she turned down a side street that was an indirect way back to our building and pulled into the driveway shortly after I did. Sure, I could have taken a different route once I picked up on the situation, but if I can recognize you by your car, back of your head, and eyes, that's on you when it's daylight and you can see my whole jerk face. Story 26. Dude, I feel like that happens to me and I won't lie. I do it by complete accident, usually to just get to where I want to go. It looks creepy and it'll most likely get me in trouble for just going my way, but someone you don't know is also going the exact same way for a little while. Story 27. I really wish the internet was segregated by age so things like this weren't possible. Personally, I would like it since I'd be able to know the person I'm arguing with isn't just some dumb kid, but mostly because it'd protect kids from weirdos. Story 28. I had an ex that justified this by saying I was poor and didn't have any money. She was totally fudge random dudes for free food, not even money, just food, which is almost worse than prostitution. I asked her why she couldn't just get a job, and she said some bullshit about NIT being able to work because of anxiety. I said, but not anxious enough to take stranger male body part inside of you for a Subway sandwich? Needless to say, we aren't together. Fudge that meanie. Story 29. This is just a part of regular stalking now. A lot of the stuff where they'd have to be following you around for a couple of months to find out is stuff they can find out in a few hours by scrolling through your socials now. Story 30. It's funny you say that. My wife and I can't have kids, but we bonded over our joy of helping kids. As an example, long ago, I didn't have a kid, but a friend of mine complained that her daughter's school didn't have a proper playground, and the PTA couldn't raise the needed amount for the city to consider it. So I talked to the mayor about it, got them funding for a new playground, and next thing I knew, I was on the PTA school board and didn't have a kid or any family member who went to that school or even live in the school zone. In my 3 years as a board member, I got them the new playground and personally raised over $100K. and rewrote their bylaws as clearly not a damn one of them had a clue how things should be run. Ironically, about 4 years later, I ended up being an admin of a high school and did that for almost a decade. I even have a scholarship I funded for the high school starting this year, so not all citizens are bad, just saying. In both instances, I drastically improved the school's situation, and my forward-thinking policies have enabled their success long after I left with honor and good standing. Story 31. Reminds me of that old Craigslist post that was a coffin in a guy's garage that had a fudge hole in it. It was free, but you had to take a picture of your male body part in the hole and you could fudge it but leave behind the picture. Story 32. If she is a legal adult, has not been persuaded in any way, is there of her own accord and made a conscious decision to sign a contract knowing full well what she is signing, then it's not really creepy, is it? Story 33. I agree. People despise female circumcision but not males. My son has felt like a freak because it wasn't done in his country of birth. Then we moved here and he's grown up feeling different. Cleanliness is not a good reason. Bathing is just fine for this, and that skin waste is protecting delicate tissue under the skin. It's like cutting off an eyelid far as I'm concerned. Story 34. Not personally dating any 19-year-old, but if it's completely consensual and they like each other, what's the problem? 19 is an adult. If an 18-year-old guy wants to date a 30-year-old woman, that's his business. Answer. 19 is adult in the sense that the number is greater than or equal to 18. But there's still so much maturing to do. On one hand, I feel like people should do whatever makes them happy so long as they're not hurting anyone. On the other, the maturity gap between 19 and 30 is absolutely massive. You're in entirely different phases in your life. There's a big difference in wealth income. None of it is 100 deal breaker, again, so long as everyone is happy, but it's very hard to have a relationship as equals. If you were a parent, would you be worried if your 19-year-old daughter or son was seeing a 30-yo? I think most would. Story 35. This, with the second number changing to whatever is legal where you live. Had a couple friends from college I had to drop when they voiced their opinions on trying to date high schoolers in our late 20s. Story 36. My grandmother has one. Helps her keep a sense of connection to her community since she's basically housebound now. Plus, she got to have fun ribbing one of her kids for getting pulled over for speeding since she heard about it on the radio before they got home. Story 37. This is to use white women as broodmares, producing white children. The far-tight belves in the Great Replacement theory. The basic idea is that as black and brown people begin getting higher positions, greater influence and power at the expense of white man, I'll hold for a moment for vomiting or laughing. These people are convinced that race is a zero-sum game when it comes to race and religion. The chanting at Charlottesville of, "The Jews will not replace us." Besides being anti-Semitic, it's impossible for 2 of the population to create enough humans for this. I'm not on the pure. White, straight Christian. There is serious violence interlaced with this ideology. Important side note, many evangelicals consider Catholics praying to Saint Anthony or any other saint as praying to demons. Story 38. Did you know that children contestants have to carry insurance? Insurance against molestation, among other things? Do you have more info about this? Nothing is coming up on Google for insurance related to child beauty pageants. Story 39. Aussie here. We had a politician do this to a female colleague about 10 years ago, and honestly, I know not a single other thing about the man except he did this. And a few years later, he died, and his legacy, forevermore, is Troy Buswell, the chair sniffer. Story 40. I saw a guy do it when I was in high school. We were around 15, 16 years old. He was dating her knowing she's way out of his league, and when she got up and left the bus we were all riding, he went in for a sniff of the seat she was sitting on. He probably did that because he knew he probably would never get far enough with her LOL. It was one of the weirdest things I ever witnessed. Story 41. Yes, we did. It helped a lot with the grieving process. Daughter is doing fine BTW. She can do everything with her prosthetic. It also helped that she lost her leg when she was very young, so she doesn't know any better. Story 42. Yup, my eyes will get really wide and my wife will be like, "Hello? Where did you go? Why are you staring at that woman?" In reality, I'm focusing on the buckle of her purse and thinking if today was the day the zombies come, where would I go? Story 43. My brother once walked up and joined the conversation, making it super awkward. I was mortified at the time, but looking back, I'm proud of him. Yes, he did it to make it awkward. He's not crazy extroverted. Story 44. Unintentionally did this to my neighbor once. I kept catching her eyes glancing back at me in her rearview mirror. We'd been neighbors for like 5 years at that point and knew each other, so I was just like, she has to recognize me in my car. Eventually, she turned down a side street that was an indirect way back to our building and pulled into the driveway shortly after I did. Sure, I could have taken a different route once I picked up on the situation, but if I can recognize you by your car, back of your head, and eyes, that's on you when it's daylight and you can see my whole jerk face. Story 45. I stay on home and have even muted our teenagers several times, yet it still pops up in my feed every month or two. Like you, I don't realize the sub I'm looking at, I'm just scrolling past a prompt. I used to be a teen, so seeing a question I can relate to, I chime in. Then realize the sub, mute again, only to have 20 more related subs pop up because I showed interest in the other. I really miss third-party Reddit apps. The official one sucks so hard. Story 46. Things don't even need to be posted online by you. I Googled my friend with a unique name who hasn't posted on social media in 15 years and was still able to get a solid understanding of what she does purely because of events she attended, awards she's won, or her uni workplace post her name and face online. Consent was never asked, and there's no opportunity to revoke it. Why? Because it's technically legal where we are from, given that most companies will work it into their terms and conditions. Story 47. Mate, where I live, all you gotta do is look up someone's name and you get their address, birthday, full government name, everyone they live with links to their profiles as well. What cars they have, exact model, potentially their phone number and information about the house they live in, square meters, year it was built, renovation, etc. It's kind of insane now that I think about it, but it's fairly normal and I don't think it gets abused that much unless it's a serious stalker, which I also don't think is very common here. Story 48. It is creepy. The context is that the viewer is getting off on the person being as young as legally possible. Implication being that they find young, barely adult people attractive, getting increasingly creepy the older the viewer is. Story 49. I don't think it even needs parents' permission. I think the law just says as long as they aren't in a position of authority, i.e. a teacher, and they don't exploit their lack of maturity to pressure them into it. Story 50. I mean, 19 is adult in the sense that the number is greater than or equal to 18. But there's still so much maturing to do. On one hand, I feel like people should do whatever makes them happy so long as they're not hurting anyone. On the other, the maturity gap between 19 and 30 is absolutely massive. You're in entirely different phases in your life. There's a big difference in wealth income. None of it is a 100 deal breaker, again, so long as everyone is happy, but it's very hard to have a relationship as equals. If you were a parent, would you be worried if your 19-year-old daughter or son was seeing a 30-yo? I think most would. Story 51. I, male, was the 19-year-old in this situation. We both knew I would be returning to college out of the state at the end of the summer, so we had no illusions of where this was going or that the relationship was anything more than polite cough what it was. Best summer ever. Lol, and technically I turned 20 at the end of August. Does that help? Story 52. The thread asked for something that was legal but creepy. Based in reality was not specified. So, gosh golly gee, I hope not. However, I recall a Reddit thread where a former bartender at a gay bar had to give an angel cocktail to a dude who came in with some work buddies. He was straight, but they were not, and slipped him something in his drink. The bartender sent him in the back room, and within 5 minutes, straight dude was in a bad way. IIRC, the bartender had to call an ambulance, and the gay guys had to be banned from the bar. Got cops called. Don't remember what it said happened after that. Thus, if it can happen that way, there are probably cis creepos willing to do anything. Barf. Also, I went back and forth on terminology there, also writing on my phone, on a break at work. Story 53. A person who cares more about the prize money than basically apprenticing their child for intimacy work, dancer, cammer, bottle service girl, go-go dancer, and teaching a pre-teen girl that her physical attributes are the ones to invest in. Yeah, your looks will outlast your intellect, SM. Basically, monetary sociopath who instead of providing for a child would be their dependent, or a failed pageant queen to damage to see she's repeating her own abuse, or an overindulgent ignorant fudge mope who lets a chittle determine their own destiny but not their bedtime or choice of breakfast. Story 54. In the world of business, your business is held liable for any damages your business might cause someone. A lawn care company would be held responsible for damages caused to a customer's car or home by one of their mowers. A plumber would be responsible if they installed something incorrectly and flooded someone's house. It's best practice to carry insurance to mitigate these liabilities. They get policies based on the work they do that covers certain things in certain amounts. In the event the company causes damage or gets sued, the insurance may pay for some or all of the claim based on the policy and its coverage. This also gives customers confidence that in the event a business causes them damages, their claim will be covered and paid. Broke businesses can't pay lawsuits, and LLCs protect the personal assets of its owners. If you sue an LLC and win, and they don't have enough to cover the lawsuit, they can declare bankruptcy, you get whatever they have, and they move on with their life. Child beauty pageants are businesses. Their owners, employees, and contractors are in close proximity to young children, sometimes privately. They carry insurance in case one gets caught molesting kids. Sounds fudge up and definitely is, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was best practice for every child-facing business to carry a policy for this. Story 55. Exactly. That's just proving what we are talking about, that there is harm in child beauty pageants. My mother was a teenage beauty queen. She won every pageant she entered, and there were a lot. She said she disliked every minute of it, and only reason she did it was for the prize money. Felt stupid and embarrassed but needed the money terribly. She says they were extremely poor. My grandfather died a hero when Grandma was pregnant with number 10. She never even dated again. She always said she did not want another man around her kids, and besides, who's going to marry a lady with 10 kids? She. didn't have a car or license, was lunch lady, no money, and their house burned when Mom was 17. My mom says no man ever tried to mess with her. They would just want to go out with her. She was not very experienced. That area, and was not interested until she met Daddy. She's only dated my daddy, and they were together for 70 years or more BC of dating until he passed last year. It was a tough life in every way. Back then, though, the community helped out families like that. When my mom and dad met, he hit her out of that mess and provided us a wonderful life of any and everything we wanted. Which I'm not too sure was a smart thing to do, but that's the kind of man he was.